we'll address some key components of how mindfulness can be integrated into our daily life in order to facilitate more stress reduction. My name's Erin Coffey. I work here at Mammoth Hospital. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. What is stress? There's two forms of stress. So we have acute stress, which is short-term, and we have chronic stress, which is long-term. Acute stress is something like maybe there was a loss of job or the ending of a relationship, or it could be something really simple like being stuck in traffic. And then chronic stress is more of like this long-term stress that we endure when we're not engaging in healthy lifestyle habits. So this is more so related to a person's overall response to everyday living and the events that happen from day to day. Well, imagine that your nervous system has these two parts, the sympathetic, parasympathetic. The body, when dealing with stress, it often goes into this state of fight or flight. When the body goes into this fight or flight response, the body is responding to perceived danger. The sympathetic nervous system, or that fight or flight response, when that's activated, it's causing the body to respond in ways that cause us distress physically and mentally. So stress creates this response in the body that increases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Pupil is dilating, the heart rate is increasing. We actually start to have shorter breaths, so we breathe more rapidly. This is where anxiety might come in, where people start to hyperventilate, we sweat, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, today, for many of us, the body is more often in this state than it should be. And for many of us, we don't even notice that it's actually happening. Long-term exposure to high levels of chronic stress can also cause immune system issues like inflammation, and they can possibly lead to long-term health issues like heart disease. We now know that things like weight gain, fatigue, high blood pressure, changes in our mood can all be related to stress. This other half of the nervous system, this is our parasympathetic nervous system. So we want to get to this state where we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system, where everything is starting to slow down. If any of you are thinking about how stress, is pervasive in your life, because it is in many of ours, these are some things that you can do to live a healthier lifestyle to reduce stress. So first and foremost, something that I'm going to go over with anyone that I see and meet for the first time is sleep. Are you resting? Healthy eating habits. So much of what we eat affects the body, affects inflammation. We can control some of that stress that we feel, inflammation in the body, which leads to health issues, by eating healthy, being active, exercising, healthy relationships in order to reduce isolation, going on a walk with a friend, going to visit family, having that friend that you see a couple times a week. Relationships and connection with human beings actually reduces cortisol in the nervous system as well. Time outside, connecting to nature. We know that the trees around us release hormones that actually reduce cortisol in the nervous system. So just being in nature alone can immediately help to slow down that cycle of stress that's happening in the body. Calming strategies. So putting our body in a state of relaxation. One of the key components to being able to do that is through our breath. Simply by slowing down our breathing, paying attention to how we engage with our breath. Even right now, if I lower my tone of voice and I start to slow down my breath, I can feel my body starts to slow down with it. When you take a deep breath in and you have a long exhale, our breath is sending messages now to that parasympathetic nervous system, and it's slowing down the heart rate. It's reducing tension in the GI tract. It's relaxing your lungs. Self-care, it's essentially time that we set aside to be alone, to feel re-energized. Self-care is this time that we need to kind of separate ourselves from those stressors, where we're not doing anything other than something that we really enjoy. And this can actually be rest. It can be any of these things on this list right here. Self-care can be eating healthy. Self-care can be exercise. Self-care can be, a nice calming soak at the end of the day with lavender. It can be a good book. It can be a latte. And then self-compassion and gratitude. Having healthy daily routines, so consistency in routines. We always talk about how children need these routines and structure. Adults need it just as much as children. Learning to say no to taking on too much, as well as making sure that we're asking for help when it's needed. Essentially, it's setting boundaries so that you can do all of these things for yourself. And sometimes we need the guidance of someone like a therapist to help us figure out how we can have these things or make time for these things. I'm giving you a lot of information as far as what the components of stress management are. I'm not expecting us to just say, okay, yeah, I'm going to integrate all of these things into my life today, right now. That's not realistic. These are things that take a long time for us to work on, to integrate, and it's not always going to be all of these things are happening all at once. You can grab a paper and a pen, or you can just think about some of these questions, but I'm going to give us a little time to ask ourselves some questions. I want you to think about what you would like to gain from this overall course over the next 6 weeks. The second question, I want you to think about how much time a day, week, or month do you think is a reasonable contribution to the prevention of long-term illness for yourself as you age? And then do you believe that you're worthy of this work and time? Or do you think self-compassion is somewhere you may need to start in order to give yourself permission for this time? I would like you to think about or even write down one thing, just one, that you would like to work on this week that may help in reducing current daily and or acute stress. The long-term goal is that for stress management, you're changing your lifestyle to integrate all of these healthier things into it on a daily basis.